Thank you for boarding the Good Pod Guide flight GPG 6084. So sometimes on this podcast, I feel like all we talk about is murder and horrific, creepy histories and horrible people doing horrible things. So it's time for a deviation from that. And today's podcast is Happy Place by Fearne Cotton. So the first thing that struck me about this is the list of guests that she has had features. It is so A-list. I can't even tell you. There's people like Stephen Fry, Mel C, Russell Brand, Davina McCall, Mary Berry, Jada Pinkett Smith, Ricky Gervais, Alicia Keys. And then there's all of these authors like Brian E. Gordon, Matt Haig, Glennon Doyle, Elizabeth Day, Lisa Taddeo. Like, I was blown away just flicking through the lists of the episodes and seeing the names of each of the people featured in each one. So obviously they've all had a wide range of experiences, but what unites them is that they have been through things and had changes or made decisions in their lives, which has changed their outlook on what happiness is to them. And they explore that. That's kind of the loose pin of each of the interviews. So far, so uplifting. Of particular interest to you guys may be when Philip Schofield spoke really frankly about his decision to come out in 2020, which got a lot of press coverage at the time, even though it feels like it was an absolute lifetime ago because it was just before all of the pandemic and lockdown hit. But he talks about that, the difficulty of that and the emotions he felt during that massively vulnerable time. A bit more lighthearted is when Paloma Faith told a little story about her struggles when she was early into her career as a singer. And she tells this story about when her album campaign was launching and her record label told her that they only had the budget for 2 billboard posters. And she was just getting over a breakup. So she requested that they put one at the bottom of her boyfriend's street, her ex-boyfriend's street, just so that when he left the house, he would just see her massive. And I've got a lot of time for that energy, I have to say. She also had Ricky Gervais on speaking about his series Afterlife, which is on Netflix. So if you haven't watched that, I highly recommend you do. It is so thoughtful and thought-provoking. I absolutely loved it. In fact, I loved it so much that I quoted it in my book, which is out in July. And what's the quote? I'm going to absolutely butcher this, but it's something along the lines of happiness is so great that it doesn't matter if it's yours or not. And I just loved that. I thought it was so nice. Robbie Williams also talks about his journey through and with anxiety and depression. And he says something on there that actually, as a person in recovery from addiction, it's a rhetoric that's really familiar to me. It's definitely something that I felt and I've heard people express, not in these words, but really similar things in recovery meetings and stuff like that. And so this is what he says. He says, I was born raw. It felt like I was the most sensitive person in the world. I was overwhelmed by the world as it was. I didn't have what I needed to combat that stuff. I felt less than, and I would feel embarrassed by those feelings. And that's, he says, led to his sort of anxiety and depression. It's just so real. It's just so raw and relatable and humanizing. And it's just really nice to hear people speak like that. And it doesn't feel like fake motivation or fake feelings or like, you know, the sort of faux honesty that you can get on social media sometimes. It just feels like someone sort of opening up a little bit, and that really moved me. I really, really liked it. There are 8 series in total, 10 to 12 episodes, and each one's about an hour. As I've said, you know, it's thoughtful and thought-provoking, and the discussions on mental health and just general life with these people who you genuinely want to hear speak. It's not preachy, and it's not that sort of faux motivational speaking. It's just real. In the next episode, I reminisce about weekend mornings in front of the telly, watching T4 and eating cereal, as well as reviewing Jamila Jamil's I Way. For more info on the Good Pod Guide, check out the show notes. Also, like, subscribe, and leave a positive review so we can try and beat that nasty algorithm.